We're now recording. So I have a list of questions prepared for you, but first I'll introduce myself. Hi, it's nice to meet you. I'm Reshma Acer, and I'll be the session coordinator for today's event. I work for Pre-Law Shadowers, who set up today's session. Pre-Law Shadowers was an organization started during COVID, and it's a student-led organization dedicated to providing pre-law students across universities in Ontario with virtual shadowing opportunities. Our goal is to help students engage and learn more about the legal careers they plan to pursue, because it can be difficult to find learning opportunities during times such as the pandemic. And we thought that this would be both an accessible and educationally fulfilling organization for students to be part of. As I mentioned, I'm Reshma Acer, and I'm a fourth-year student at U of T studying ethics, society, and law and linguistics. I'm currently studying for the LSAT and plan on taking it sometime in the next year before hopefully applying to law school. That said, I'm really interested in the legal field and hearing about others' journeys into law school. So I'm really excited to host today's session. If you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself, please do so.
Thank you, Reshma. Happy to be here and be able to chat a little bit. It sounds like a wonderful organization that's very helpful, and I probably would have appreciated when I was an undergrad as well. My name is Erik Coates. I'm a second-year associate at Bennett Jones in the Vancouver office. I'm a corporate lawyer primarily. I do some regulatory work as well, and that's about it. I went to Dal for law school and graduated in 2020.
Okay, so you did mention you went to Dal for law school, but what did you study in your undergrad? And why did you choose to study what you studied?
Sure, for my undergrad?
Yeah.
Okay, I went to UBC for my undergrad. I majored in honors political science with international relations and minored in French. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to study when I went to school for undergrad. I had a general idea of courses I was interested in. I ended up liking a lot of political theory and courses in international relations, courses, international affairs, those sorts of issues. And basically when I was in my second year and I was looking for majors or trying to decide what my major would be, I saw that they had this honors program, which I thought sounded nice. I didn't really know what it meant, and decided to apply for that. I later found out that I had to write a thesis, which I had no idea about. So that was an unpleasant surprise, but a pleasant experience after. So first tip, make sure you double check what you're doing before you get into it. And I minored in French because I've moved around a lot growing up, and when I moved back to Canada, I didn't have to take a French credit because I already had a second language credit, and then I wanted to learn French and felt a sort of a civic responsibility to learn French. So that's why I ended up minoring. I like the language. So that's my undergrad story.
That's interesting. So what exactly motivated you to attend law school, and why did you pick the law school you chose?
Right. So I think I might have a pretty different background here than you or anyone, most of the other people listening. I was not particularly driven to go to law school in my undergrad. It was something that I sort of had in the back of my mind, something that my parents suggested many times, and something that I'd considered and thought interesting. And I took the LSAT a first time in my last year of undergrad, sort of on a whim, just to see what it was like, to be honest, and see if I could have my options opened up a little bit, because I wasn't exactly sure where I wanted to go. And I did incredibly average on my first time doing the LSAT. I think like the exact average grade. And then I finished my degree, and I took some time off, and I considered sort of all of the options of what I could do with my degree, things that I was interested in. And I realized that I still wanted to take more time and develop my skills, learn more, essentially. And law school seemed like an interesting place to do that. It seemed like a lot of the things that I was interested in, whether it was policy analysis or human rights or international law, there's a law component to it. So I decided that I would this time actually study for the LSAT, which I highly recommend. And studied for the LSAT for a few months, took it again, did a lot better. And then I didn't want to stay at UBC. Nothing wrong with UBC. I loved it there as my undergrad, but I just wanted to go somewhere else. And I always was interested in Dell. It seemed like a place I was interested in. And I was interested in McGill because of the English-French combo. But I made a pretty boneheaded mistake when applying, and didn't check the dates, the deadlines close enough to the time. Another thing that you should absolutely do. And so when I went to submit my application for McGill, it had closed by 2 days. So I thought it was on the 15th and it was on the 1st. And then all of the Ontario schools had also ended their applications. And basically the only place that I thought that I still wanted to apply to was Dal. So that was the only law school that I ended up applying for. I was fortunate to get in, and very happy that I went there. I had a terrific experience, great education, and wonderful colleagues and friends. And Halifax is a great town, so I would highly recommend it to anyone.
Thank you. You did briefly mention this, but what was studying for the LSAT like for you? Did you have a specific technique? Do you have any advice for students currently taking the LSAT?
Yeah, so I took a course, UBC, like continuing education or something, offered a course that was, I think, a couple hours a day, maybe 3 times a week, something like that, with this instructor who was also a CrossFit instructor and had gotten a perfect grade on the LSAT, this gigantic man who looked like Mr. Clean. He was great, really smart guy. The thing about the LSAT that I found in my experience is that the main issue is time, and the second issue is learning how to answer the questions. It's really once you figure out the type of questions that they ask and you practice those, you can get through them really quickly. And that's basically what you want to, I guess what you want to do, either going through a course, studying in a manual, doing study groups with friends, whatever the case may be. When you get a certain amount of techniques to answer the different types of questions, so you have the reading comprehension, which is just, what to target while reading, how to read quickly, what to underline as you're going through so that you can refer back to it quickly. Then they have logical reasoning, I think, right? That's the Is that the ones where it's like James is and J, M, L, and P are going on 4 planes that leave? Yeah, okay. Those ones I did terrible. I could not answer any of them. I would always get it wrong. I could never figure out how to do it. And my course was super helpful because the instructor basically broke down like 4 or 5 techniques to answer these questions. And I can't really remember them now, but based on those 4 or 5 techniques, who before this would maybe get like 10% of the questions right, was getting 70 to 80% of the questions right just by learning these basic techniques, because they all have essentially similar formula, similar type of reasoning, logical reasoning that you're going through. And then just drill it. Just keep working at it so you get the pace up so that you feel comfortable with it. And then you're essentially just recognizing patterns and implementing them. So that was the biggest thing for me, was on that one. I ended up doing well on that section in the LSAT. And I can't remember the name of the last one. There's generally 2 types. Those are just sort of the logical questions, where they kind of ask you a thing as multiple choice. For those, similar technique. For those, I didn't have as many issues. There weren't as many sort of cheat codes as with the logical reasoning. But again, it's just sort of practice, and it's really finding the key to answering them. That sort of technique or a rubric or something that you can go through these, and then just really drilling through the questions a lot, reviewing them after, seeing what you got wrong, redoing it to make sure you got it, and then just practicing under time, because it's very stressful. You get in there when you're doing the actual LSAT, the pressure is on. There's all these people, cortisol levels are through the roof. And it's intense. They really scare you. They're like, if anyone is holding a pencil 1 second after the timer's done, will tear your paper in half right in front of you. And so it's a high stress environment. And it's like, if you had an extra hour to do the LSAT, everyone would get 90% on it. Everyone would have a 168 or whatever. But you don't have that time. That's what is tough. So I think just practicing under test-like circumstances is super helpful, and figuring out what areas you have issues with, because different people have issues in different areas, and learning the techniques to get through that, whether it's getting a LSAT course book, working with a study group, looking at lectures online, taking a course like I did, whatever works for you and your circumstances.
That's really interesting. Thank you for that advice.
No problem.
During your time in Dal, were there any courses or professors or even school clubs that stood out to you?
Sure, that's a great question. Before I get to that, I'll just say one other thing about the LSAT. Don't worry if you screw up the first time. I think most people take it 2 or 3 times, and many schools will take your top grade, not average the 2. So I don't think that's really an issue. So don't worry if you screw up the first time. It's okay. As for Dal, I had several great professors. So my first year, I took the standard course that everyone takes: property law, contract law, public law, which is essentially constitutional law, criminal law, and torts. And I would say pretty much every professor that I had for those classes was very memorable. I'll shout out in particular my criminal law professor, Adelina Efteni. She was wonderful. In her first class, she said, she's Romanian. She did her first law degree there. She said she started studying criminal law. Her professor said that there are 3 professions that go into the darkest corner of the human soul: priest, psychotherapist, and a criminal lawyer. And that was very exciting to me. It really engaged me in the class. My torts law professor was very funny. Michael Hadskis, great professor. Torts is a fun class. It's really kind of out of zany facts scenarios, and I think a kind of an engaging class to get into. And then property law, I had a wonderful professor as well, Diana Ginn, who I did not. I thought I was going to hate property law. I went in very negative about it. And it was my favorite class in my first year of law school. It's actually very interesting. It has a lot of theoretical and philosophical implications as well as, real world impacts. And yeah, I had a great professor for that class. Another class that was great was I took administrative law later, and you had an option to visit a jail. So I went to Nova Scotia jail, women's jail, you had the opportunity basically to teach people about their rights that they had in jail. And me and my partner talked about about their healthcare rights that they have in jail. And really, we went there and we ended up learning, I think, more than they did, learning about their conditions in the jail, what they've been through, how they ended up there. People just wanted to talk and be recognized as human beings. And we're also very thankful to learn about how actually a lot of their rights were being violated quite often. And so it felt very empowering to me as well as a student to be able to give them information that could help them overcome, these injustices. So that was a really special opportunity. And then the last class I'll shout out in law school was I did a legal aid clinic term in my third year at the Dalhousie Legal Aid Service, the oldest legal aid service in Canada, or law school clinic in Canada. It's great. They do youth criminal law, quote unquote poverty law, and family law. And I worked in all three areas. I got to go to court. I got to make submissions. I went to administrative tribunals. I was involved in sort of public policy initiatives as well, all through my time at the clinic, and it was fantastic. All of the lawyers there, Shauna Hoyt, Suzanne Litke, Sue Young, among others, are all really brilliant people who are very giving with their time and opportunity. And I would say a lot of what you learn in law school is completely irrelevant in your day-to-day as a lawyer, especially in my case as a corporate lawyer. A lot of what I learned, is not something that I really do in my day-to-day work. So doing a clinic term, even though the type of work I did was very different from what I did in the clinic, was incredibly useful. And what had I think the biggest impact when I was working after. And the last point in terms of clubs, there are a bunch of great clubs at Dal. I was involved quite a bit in the Weldon Literary Mood Association, which is basically you do a moot based on a work of literature. It's kind of like a play, and can bring some fun to your time at school. And it raises money for Halifax Humanities 101, which is a great nonprofit that provides university level courses to people who otherwise couldn't afford to go. There's the Refugee Advocacy Association of Dalhousie, which I was involved in, that does letter writing campaigns, fundraisers, and other initiatives to support refugees in the Maritimes. I I was also in DELA, the Dalhousie Employment and Labor Law Association, which was started. I was one of the founding members of, which was great to learn a lot about labor law, employment law. We hosted great talks from a coffee shop that had recently become a workers' cooperative after a dispute with their owner. So that was really interesting from a legal perspective what a cooperative is. There's a variety of different types. It means a lot of different things in different places in Canada as well. And sort of those types of disputes. These are just a few. There's really a whole variety of things there.
Okay, so you did mention that you are in corporate law. How did you get into this, and what do you like or dislike most about this field?
Great question. So I didn't necessarily see myself as a corporate lawyer before I became one. When I was applying for OCIs on campus interviews in second year of law school, I was primarily applying for government positions. And I had a friend who worked at Bennett Jones in Toronto, and he said, you should apply for Bennett Jones. It's a great firm. And I thought, you know what? Why not? What have I got to lose? So I applied. I had my first interview, and I thought that the people were surprisingly human. They were not what I expected corporate lawyers to be, not having interacted with any growing up. They were funny, they were warm, they were interesting, they asked good questions. We had good conversation in that first interview. And then at the interim interviews later, I just thought, these people are interesting. The kind of work that they do is interesting. They're working with a lot of different clients in a variety of areas, important clients. And this just seems like a place that I could learn a lot, that I could have a lot of room to grow. And I ended up choosing corporate law because it's a very transferable skill as a lawyer. Some lawyer work, you're just a lawyer. Well, I don't mean just like pejoratively. I mean, that's, it's a specialized skill. Corporate law, you learn a lot about the business world. You learn about accounting. You learn about public policy. You learn about a lot of areas that interact with your day-to-day work as a solicitor, which I thought was really exciting. I thought that was really interesting and dynamic. So that's something that I like. I do a lot of ESG work, which stands for environmental social governance, which is a growing area of law, and just a growing area in general. And that's really exciting to be on the cutting edge of something and learning more about how the legislative and regulatory frameworks are developing, how businesses are responding to this, how you as a corporate lawyer can assist a business in this area. So that's something I really like. Some of the work that you can do, especially as a junior, can be very dry, can be very technical. Dare I say, it can oftentimes be boring. But that's just kind of the way it is. That's, it's not great. Sometimes you have to do the grunt work and just review a gigantic contract to make sure all of the defined terms are used properly. And while you're doing it, it sucks for the most part. But after you do it a few times, you actually kind of get an idea of the structure of a contract and what a contract looks like and why these defined terms exist and what are the kind of normal defined terms. So it's useful. You have a lot of boring technical things that you have to do, but they're useful. And once you get the hang of them, you can get through them rather quickly. So there's a technical and administrative aspect to it that is not that exciting, which is the aspect that I don't like as much. And I think Bennett Jones in my office in particular in Vancouver does a great job of attempting to establish a work-life balance. But the reality of big law and corporate law is that you have high expectations, there are high demands, and oftentimes you won't have that great of a work-life balance. And that is something that I struggle with regularly.
So what does a typical day look like in your field?
There's not a typical day. Most days are different, but generally, I get started. I'm not a morning person. Some people get started earlier. I prefer to get started at 9 and work later in the day if I have to. Generally, look through the emails, see what's going on. If I'm on a deal, there's generally back and forth with your internal team. So senior associate and a partner, sometimes a student as well. You're going back and forth on what needs to be done. You are, drafting contracts, reviewing contracts, drafting resolutions, reviewing resolutions. Sometimes you're setting up closing agendas, going through the closing agenda, make sure it's correct, making sure all of your regulatory filings are in place, coordinating with co-counsel on documents. A lot of times you need to go through due diligence. So reviewing a number of materials that are sent by the other side, which can take a long time. These are sort of regular things that I address on the corporate law side. On the ESG side, then it's a bit different. Sometimes I'm, just reviewing what's new, what developments have happened, preparing speaking notes for different speaking engagements, working with clients to, determine what reporting frameworks are good for them, how they want to report, what their ESG narrative is, reviewing their documentation to make sure that to see what they have and what they can report on, that kind of thing. So I would say in general, things get busiest, as a deal is ramping up to close, and then you're doing a lot of work. And then other times your days are a bit more steady, and usually you have a few different files going and different things coming up on those files. Sometimes clients reach out to you with a panic request. Sometimes something else pops up. So it's hard to say what a regular day looks like. But those are types of things that I deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Do you have any kinds of cases that are very common in your field?
Cases?
Yeah, so like do you see a specific kind of case a lot? Is there something like that you regularly deal with in?
Right. So I do solicitor work, which a lot of the type of work that I do is on mergers and acquisitions. So you'll essentially one company is trying to buy another company. That's the main type of thing, or they're trying to do a sort of corporate restructuring, generally for tax reasons, or for regulatory reasons, or for some sort of internal change. Those are two big things that I deal with often, I guess. And I as I said, I do some regulatory work, so addressing, I make sure some of our clients have their permits and licenses in order, and are up to date. We work primarily with large corporations who have presences in multiple provinces, if not multiple countries, and they often have a variety of different regulatory issues and that they need to review and address. And so in the process of say a deal, I'll work to make sure that the purchaser, for example, has all of the permits so that when the merger is complete, that they'll be able to start working right away. So those are some of the types of things that come up.
Okay, here's a bit of a fun question, but what is a common misconception about lawyers that you hear about quite often?
Oh, okay. I think a common misconception is that lawyers are I don't know, kind of dry, boring people, or people that have wanted to be a lawyer since they were a baby or something, and have no other life outside of the law. Some of the most interesting people I know are lawyers. People have come from all sorts of different backgrounds, all sorts of different life experiences, and honestly, the office can be a fun place to be. You have interesting, people, you make friends, and yeah, it's not. It's not all. Maybe this is just a misconception that I had before, but that it was dry and boring. That's not always the case. Rarely the case.
Okay, what advice would you give to your younger self prior to attending law school?
I would say be open-minded to the opportunities that you have ahead of you. You might think you know what you want, but you don't. You might think oh, this is what this type of lawyer does, and this is what this kind of lawyer does, and you don't. Even if you do, you don't know you aren't necessarily going to end up in the same circumstance that other people that are that other you might know other corporate lawyers and go or attend one of these sessions and see, oh, this corporate lawyer does this kind of work, and you might end up doing something completely different, or working in a different place as a corporate lawyer, working in a different culture at a different firm. So there's a lot. It's a dynamic career, I guess, is what I'm getting at, and be open to it. I mean, when I was applying for, I would say actually with pretty much everyone that I went through applications with, and then summaring, articling, and students who have articled after me, I would say like 70% of them go in saying, yeah, I want to do litigation. I want to be a regulatory lawyer. And they don't end up doing it because they actually start doing the work and they realize, oh, actually, I really like this more. I like working with this group of people more. So it's good to be open. I think it's good to take a decent amount of fundamentals classes. I took business associations, I took constitutional law, administrative law. I think it's good to take some fundamental type classes, but also take different classes, just things that you're interested in. I took animals in the law because I'm interested in animal rights. I took entertainment law because I'm interested in movies and music and sports, and I mean, I don't really work in either of those areas, but those were interesting classes, made my time at law school better. So I think be open to different things. It's law school is hard. It's meant to be hard, and it's often quite grueling, and you can reach some lows in there, and I think you got to be kind to yourself. You got to realize that everyone is going through this. No one gets through it unscathed. Even the people that you look at and you think, oh, they're so perfect, and they're not. They're just getting by inside as well. And I had a ton of fun in law school. I met a lot of great people. So be open to having fun as well. Be open to the variety of experiences there, getting involved in different clubs, taking different sorts of classes. You take it as an opportunity not to just develop your legal skills, but to develop your, just your person and your personality. Those are some things I guess that I would tell my younger self.
Thank you. That is really good advice. And I'm sure your younger self would have valued knowing all this. That's pretty much it for my list of questions. Thank you so much for joining us today. Your responses are very insightful, very helpful. I'm sure a lot of students have a lot to learn from your pathway. But yeah, I hope you have a nice rest of your day. And that's it from us at Pre-Law Shadowers.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to chat. And great job delivering the questions, interviewing. And I appreciate the opportunity. And best of luck to all the future lawyers out there.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.